In 1908, the promotional brochures for the paradise called the Okanagan were singing the praises of fertile land and ample water to grow the best fruit in the world. But at the time, on the ground in the Okanagan, the systems that were going to deliver the water hadn't been finished. In some cases, they hadn't even been started. It was going to be a race between the demand and the supply. The history of irrigation is the story we tell today on Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Welcome to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with you, and our storyteller today is Wayne Wilson, a perfect guy to tell the story of irrigation in the Okanagan because he is the curator of the BC Orchard Industry Museum and the Wine Museum, and your dissertation actually in university was on irrigation.
Irrigating the Okanagan, 1860 to 1920, Mike, the genesis of this landscape that we live in and drive through every day.
That is true because you couldn't plant an apple tree here the way it was naturally.
No, we run a water deficit here. We get about 30 centimeters of precipitation a year, and most of it comes in the wintertime. And we need it, of course, in the summertime. So what do? Where do you get the water from to bring about that landscape change?
And because you were down by the lake, you'd bring it up in buckets. If you were on a creek, you could ditch it and bring it onto your property.
That's right, and the early pioneers did that. I mean, their initial land holdings were adjacent to creeks because water was an important part of that agricultural equation. So what you do is you set up your garden plots and your grain fields and your haylots probably closer to those water courses or local water bodies. You know, those little kettle holes, that little dipping lakes that are scattered through the valley here, that's where your holdings were. And you had ready and reliable access to water.
What caused the influx of the population that pretty much determined that we were going to have to find new water, more water?
Well, it's really a transportation part of that equation. I always see this as an equation. What were the pieces in that equation that came together? And the railway went across Canada 1885-86, and a spur line was dropped down into the Okanagan Valley in the early 1890s. All of a sudden, you could get pioneers in, and you could get commercial scale agricultural products out. You know, before that, it was cattle ranching and grain growing, and you don't need a transportation system because cows can walk to market, right?
Exactly.
So they can walk over to the Kootenays mining fields, they can walk to the Similkameen, they can walk up to the Caribou. But for apples, you have to have smooth, cheap transportation, and it is only available through a railway. So what they did is you can't ship it over rough wagon roads. You start off with apples, you end up with applesauce. Yeah. So you would put all of the boxes of apples onto barges, ship it up to Okanagan Landing, up to the main line, and off to market. So it's really a transportation part of that equation that allowed us to put in commercial scale orcharding.
Now, of course, finding the surplus water that is going to provide you with this orchard happens about what years for British Columbia, for the Okanagan?
Well, the first storage, of course, as they say, was in those creeks adjacent to the holdings. But as we got more pioneers here, and as we moved away from extensive agriculture to intensive agriculture, you need regular, reliable supplies of water. And that wasn't going to come from the creeks. You know how much these creeks dry up in the summertime. Yep. So where do you get the water? And it turns out that as an accident of geography in the Okanagan Valley here, that as you move up onto the benchlands and onto the upland areas, they're littered with upland lakes. And if you've been fishing or camping up at McCullough Lake or Posta Lake or Beaver Lake or D Lake or Bear Lake, all of those lakes in this area, they're no longer lakes. They're irrigation reservoirs. Those early companies, from about 1904 to 1914, 10-year period, they were sending surveyors out, finding those systems, and saying, here's a reservoir site.
Now, one of the great photographs shows a guy standing there. This is almost like, this is what you need to be a surveyor. You've got your transit, your theodolite, snowshoes, a Stetson hat, wool clothes, high boots,
away you go into the hills, and you're looking to, and this is what you're producing.
Look at, now these are the maps that this guy would have done on linen, waxed linen
That's
paper.
right, that's right. You need to bring back that information in order to say to the land development companies and the water companies, this is a site that we can develop. It's got the watershed, and away we go. So this is from the Belgo area, which is part of the Mission Creek system. And wonderful little maps. Not only do they have all of the technical stuff on them, but they got great stuff like where the guy ate lunch.
Lunch,
you know?
September 19th, right here.
Where the little beaver dams are, where the slopes are. So one is looking east from that Belgo system, one is looking west.
So he's up there looking at all of the existing water sources.
That's right.
And he's also saying, boy, if I could join that lake with this lake, with a river here with that, I could bring it all down into one major.
Exactly. In fact, if you think of Postel Lake, it's part of the South Lake is in that system. If you think of Beaver Lake, there's a whole D Lakes chain that's up in there that's part of that system, creating enough supply to irrigate huge, I mean, these are thousands of acres of land. So you better have reliable water because you're advertising it as irrigated lands. So you have to have that ready, reliable supply, and this is why they need so much of it.
Okay, going to take a break and come back to show you the size of some of these mega projects that were put in place so that ready, accessible water could be a fact in the Okanagan. We'll do that right after this break. Welcome back to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Wayne Wilson talking about irrigation and talk about the early mega projects of this area. This is this shot right here taken in what, 1910 approximately?
The Postel Lake system for the Glenmore district of Kelowna was put in 1910 to 1912. That was that land development. And this is that early dam.
Now, how big? Look at the extent. Look at the wood. Look at the rocks filling up this.
This is, you know, we're moving, at this stage, we're moving away from being a pretend engineer to being a real engineer. You know, those first systems, if you'd worked on the gold mines and stuff, you'd moved water through flumes a little bit, you could handle that. Mike, you're moving into this scale of operation. You better be a real engineer because you're dealing with high volumes of water. This dam is 28 feet high. It's a log crib, rock-filled dam made out of largely local materials. They would have brought in the concrete for the concrete core, and the rest of it was local materials. A huge camp up there at Postel Lake. Probably crews of 40 to 60. We've got teamsters, we've got sawyers, we've got surveyors and engineers. Oh yeah.
Laborers to just drag all this stuff into place. And all of that wood had to be, so this is the logging company that was necessary to cut all that stuff down.
That's right.
And you got to remember that at the same time, the Kettle Valley Railway was being built, so this was a beehive of activity through these areas.
It's a wonderful, prosperous landscape, you know, in that period just you know, for 10, 15 years before the beginning of World War I. Incredibly rich area.
So Postel Lake Dam is a big one, but at the is it the same time as McCullough being built and Hydraulic
They're
Lake?
all roughly of the same era. I mean, you can see the scale of this operation. Multiply this by dozens around the whole Okanagan region.
Because the same thing's being done in Vernon, in Peachland, in Summerland, in Kelowna, in Penticton.
Up in Kamloops. I mean, it's all over. Anywhere where there's this dry interior landscape where commercial scale orcharding was, you had to have that supply of water.
Yeah. So the dam's function was to contain so many million acre feet that could be tapped slowly as the year went by.
That's right. Anything that fell behind that dam system in the watershed as snow in the wintertime or rain in the summer was captured for release. And you release the water actually right into the creek. So the creek becomes part of that conveyance system again. Yeah. So
now, and off that creek, you've got, what do you call this where they tap it off into one of these aqueducts?
This is the head gate. And you set the head gate at the elevation that you need in order to take water to the highest point of your land in the land company system that you've got. Because water flows in these systems about 1 foot per thousand is what the ideal grade is.
That's your drop.
That's the drop.
I mean, you could do it more, but then you'd end up with a torrent.
Yeah, steeper elevation, it's faster water, and of course that can be a problem of control. Slower water, you get things growing in the system.
So this is a very precise gradient. Yeah. And it has to be obviously all downhill, but we didn't have it all downhill.
It sounds corny, you know, to say it. You need to be a real engineer as opposed to pretend engineer, but it's very true. If you don't moving high volumes of water, long distances over rugged terrain requires meticulous work. And you and I have actually been out and hiked some of these things.
Yeah.
You've seen some of the skill that's required. These engineers, in some senses, I think, have to be artists to move this amount of water through this rugged terrain here.
Well, there's tremendous imagination to say this has to be the line.
That's right.
But then every so often you come to one of those impossible spots where you've
That's
got
right.
Canyon Creek or some other
That's right.
place like this. And you could build a flume, I guess, across
Right.
that.
Right.
But and then again, another huge logging process.
Well, look at the flume system here. This is out in the Glenmore district. Elevated flumes where you couldn't build a canal system. Siphons, and siphoning is, we often think of siphoning as, if you make homemade wine or you make homemade beer, or if you're in high school.
You
you
gas out
remember
of
what
the
it,
tank,
not
right?
that you and I have ever done that, but
No.
but siphoning is the same. As long as the outlet is lower in elevation than the intake, you can go up over a hill or down through a valley. And this was used, technology was used throughout the Okanagan Valley to move water over this rugged terrain.
Now, this pipe that's dropping down this canyon, is that wood stave or metal, or what's
In this case, it was a metal siphon,
Now-
but it was wood stave, sure.
Now, you had to be even careful about that because, I mean, although you could, once you filled that with water, it was a siphoning system.
Right.
But if you had the outlet too low, the vacuum that would build up in here would crush that pipe,
It
wouldn't
did. In fact, we have historic photos of metal pipe that's flattened right out because of that. Yeah.
So it has to be so precise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's-
how long did it take if they started, say, the Postel Lake Dam in 1910? How long did it take them to finish this
the
project?
whole system was up and for sale by about 1912.
2 years.
2 years.
This is industry. These people are plowing ahead.
Oh yeah, huge amounts of labor organization, of capitalization, engineering. These are, you're right, you said it right at the beginning, these are mega projects of the day.
Look at this shot here. This is a
I love
shot
this.
of, and there's even a policeman there standing with his bicycle.
Directing
looking very
traffic.
officious. Look at those horses that are bringing in pipe for what?
Tens of thousands of feet of pipe. This again is for the Glenmore district, moving down Bernard Avenue in Kelowna, heading out to the Glenmore system, because where you couldn't put pipes or where you couldn't put flumes or canals, you could put in pipe systems. And these are manufactured lengths of pipe, probably from Vancouver, brought in on the Sycamoose, onto the wharf, onto the wagons and off into the
And up
irrigation
into the
system.
mountains.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you had to have, what do they call guys who drive horses? Teamsters.
Teamsters, yeah.
Teamsters, you had to have all of the stock, you had to have all of the grain and the hay.
Warehousing, yeah, it's all there. I mean, this is and think about the scale of operation that we're working here. Between, as I say, in that time period, you're changing 35 to 40,000 acres of land from cattle ranching and grain growing into orcharding, and you've got to have a lot of hardware on the landscape to make that change complete.
Yeah. Look, here's a shot of a vast sort of empty expanse, but and this also shows you that the trees aren't growing yet,
No.
but they've got the flumes in place.
That's
They're
right.
going to do some kind of ditch irrigation that's going to provide the water for those trees 1 year or 2 years down
And
the road.
if you're the pioneer who's coming there to invest in the landscape, this is going to reassure you that, yes, there is some hardware in place that is going to ensure your crop, because you know it's darn hot.
It's darn hot. It's going to dry up quicker than you can say
right.
Jack Robinson.
That's
Or
right.
J.M. Robinson, as the case may be.
We'll get to Robinson in a minute.
In
here.
a little bit? Okay, let's take a break here. We'll come back in just a second because amazing, I guess it shouldn't be amazing to us, but the whole place is being advertised for sale, and there's water available, and it'll grow wonderful crops, and people back in England are reading the advertisements and saying, darn it, we're going to come. There's nothing been built yet, so it's a race to discover what arrives first, the person who's going to buy the land or the water so that he can grow his crop. It's really quite an interesting story. We'll do that right after this break.
Only Hitachi original technologies unleash lifelike color and detail in plasma. And now at the Brick, you can save on Hitachi high-definition plasmas. Introducing a 42-inch plasma with more than 1 million pixels of resolution. Get it with the 600-watt home theater system, only $19.98. Or save $1,000 on this 50-inch plasma HD TV with home theater system. And you don't pay for 15 months. Hitachi at The Brick and online at thebrick.com.
Hey there, Freezy the Snowman here. Ever since I was rolled up on the corner, I've been frozen in fear watching you humans drive in the snow, following too close, going too fast, and the worst, not even using winter tires. I just about blew my buttons. Do you forget where you live? This is Canada, people. All seasons just don't cut it this time of year. This winter, use 4 winter tires. Do it for me and everyone else out there.
Listen to your road sense. Slow down in winter conditions. A message from ICBC.
The Stone Sisters, Shannon and Tamara. We sell. The Stone Sisters. We get it done.
What makes Sleep Country better? Many of our customers tell us that it's our delivery service. We deliver 7 days a week, treat your home as carefully as our own, and we'll donate your old mattress to charity.
When we designed the 2008 GMC Sierra, we designed it from the inside out. More comfortable, more powerful, and more fuel efficient. We examined everything and overlooked nothing. That's professional grade.
Welcome back to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Wayne Wilson. We're talking about the greening of the Okanagan.
Don't you love that phrase?
I love it. I love it. Because you got to remember, this is just Dust Bowl country until water arrives.
Well, think about it. I mean, the names of places. You know, Glenmore Valley, we think of this wonderful landscape, but it used to be called Starvation Flats.
Because it was clay-based soils, no water.
Bald open prairie.
Ghastly stuff.
Wild.
But now, the Kelowna Land and Orchard Company is the group that put together this blueprint.
Don't you love this? This is
This
great.
blueprint is so detailed that it doesn't just break the land down into sections or chunks or areas. It breaks the land down into the specific
Blocks.
plot that you're going to grow
That's
on
right.
this piece of land.
You want to grow King David's apples? There they are.
They're done
Yellow
there.
Newtown, Northern Spy, Wealthy. They're all right there.
That's
this
right.
This is a model, Mike, and it's a model for 2 people. It's a model for the pioneers who are moving out here. This is a new landscape for them. So if they're moving into this, it's probably incumbent on the land development company to give them some direction in what they're doing. So this is the company orchard. So it's there for the pioneers themselves, and it's there for the land development company as well as a marketing tool.
Yeah.
So they could send this over to England and say that this is the model that we're putting together for our land development company. I mean, the Land and Orchard Company was a huge operation.
It was. And this particular blueprint, it says right on it, 1912.
That's right.
So this blueprint is actually being created before any water actually gets to the site.
Oh, it's there. It's part of that sales pitch.
Yeah. And so, why is there something about the British, and I'm thinking that mostly British,
Well,
Scottish, why?
By 1911, 1922, 80% of the population in the Okanagan Valley was British by birth or British by descent. And they're coming here and they're setting up the orcharding landscape based on a couple of things. One is that they know that the land development model can work. J.M. Robinson in Peachland proved that it was possible to make money and do orcharding at that level. Secondly, Lord and Lady Aberdeen put in the orcharding landscape up in the Vernon area and proved that you could grow tree fruit varieties on a commercial scale here. And there were certainly others who were doing it, Pridham in the Kelowna area here, etc. So those 2 components are in place. And what they're bringing out here is they're remaking this whole Okanagan landscape in a way that is comfortable to them. Remember that, approaching 100 years ago, this is literally a God-forsaken wilderness. To the Edwardian mind, coniferous green had a certain connotation. It was wilderness. You walked into those bushes, and a bear could eat you, or a cougar could get you. It was Emily Carr wrote, it was wild Canadianness.
Yeah.
Now,
What they wanted was a little piece of old England that they could feel comfortable
sure,
with.
I mean, England, I've been there, it's like a golf course. There is no place in England that hasn't been lived in for hundreds of years.
Deciduous green, not coniferous green.
Right, they want deciduous green because deciduous green speaks to civilization and comfort. Now you can remake your pioneer setting internally in your home very quickly and easily. But you want to remake the larger landscape. And it's irrigation that provided them with a vehicle to change that larger outer landscape. And this is the model that they used.
And it's manicured, it's civilized.
Even
the
rows of
cougars
trees.
are way out there now.
Right. I mean, look at the rows of trees. It's an ordered landscape. It's a little bit of civilization in this godforsaken wilderness.
It's ordered both ways. Have you ever driven down the lines of the orchard and it's straight that way, and it's straight that way, and it's straight that way?
That's
I
right.
mean, it was ordered.
And it's got a set of, I mean, if you look at maps like this, there's a network of secondary roads in place. So it's an efficient landscape in that regard as well.
The thing that I have to say is, you can't put in how many miles for just the Postel Lake irrigation system, for just the South Kelowna irrigation, for the Vernon, for the, I mean, how much money did these things cost to build?
Between 1904 and 1914, that's really the era we're talking about here. There literally millions of dollars went into developing these systems, and most of it was, most of that money was gotten through personal connections in Great Britain. Certainly some of it came from Belgium, the Belgo company. But the bulk of it came from England, and it came through personal connections. You knew someone who knew someone. You were my second cousin twice removed, and you were in England, and you had some investment money. Then you could put it into the land development company.
There wasn't one guy, like Kelowna Land and Orchard didn't send over, you know, Sharky Smith, the guy who could extract money from a stone. I mean,
Sure, there were people who went over, and they took along documents like this. They took along these land development brochures to engender the idea that this stuff was well on its way. And they could drum up both the money for the systems, land development companies and the water systems, and drum up the settlers to actually come and settle the landscape.
Millions and millions of dollars.
That's
If
right.
people invested, they expected, I would imagine, a return on
they
this
did.
money.
Yeah.
Did they ever get it?
The first people in made money because they were buying up the old cattle ranches at a cheap rate per acre. They were subdividing it, putting on an irrigation system, and away they go. By the time you get to 1909, 1910, through to, you know, the end of it was really 1913. There was a world depression in 1913. That was killed even more in 1914 when World War I came along. The Exchequer of England said, no more money out of England. So for the first few years, people made money. But after that, no, it was not a good investment.
But it's just awesome how much money came pouring into this place that created the dream. You obviously create a dream in the minds of the people, and then you magically satisfy it. I mean,
That's
it
right.
didn't work in Wallachine up in Kamloops. They, you know, that was a terrible story.
Enterprise. Oh yeah.
But this worked.
Just worked.
And
It worked.
the environment we live in today is as a result of the work that went on 100 years ago.
It is. That landscape that we live in and drive through is a result of this 10 years of changing that landscape. The regional economy was altered 180 degrees.
Is there any chance that it might not have happened? I mean, as historians look back, do they say, gee, in 1910, if this hadn't happened, then, you know?
I don't think so.
How tenuous was our...
I think it was pretty strong. You know, the kind of settlement that was taking place in the Okanagan Valley here is the same kind of settlement that was taking place in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa. There's a move of settlers out of Great Britain into the mid-latitude settlements overseas. This is part of a larger pattern that's taking place worldwide. And the landscape is ideal. The transportation system is in place. The climate is here, the soils. It's just a wonderful position to come together to make that. And, you know, Okanagan orchardists moved water from being a private good, the private water companies, into being a public resource. And for British Columbia, I think it was the Okanagan growers who made that change. They said, look, if you want public irrigation to take over from the private companies, you better go and ask for it. And it was, well, in the Okanagan area, it was Price Ellison who did that. He stood up in front of the growers at an irrigation conference, 1910, 1912, and said, look, we're taking water off the land in the Sumas Prairie. You tell me what the difference is between that and putting water on the land. If you want public irrigation, you demand it from the government. He was a great guy.
And the government went for it?
By 1918, there was legislation in place to take over those land companies or those water companies and put them into public irrigation systems. And by 1920, they'd provided $2 million to buy out those private systems and make them the public irrigation companies, the districts that we know, Vernon Irrigation District, Southeast Kelowna Irrigation District, Black Mountain. They're the result of that shift of them saying, look, water in the Okanagan isn't a private resource. We all need it. Let's look at it differently.
Wayne Wilson, thank you very much for coming in. Curator of the BC Orchard Industry Museum and fiend for irrigation. We'll see you next time.